every time I would meet someone new, I would say a name and I'd say my fun fact.
Yeah.
My ancestors were cannibals.
Bro.
And
What?
that is the look that I got.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Steak and Sauce Podcast, episode 14. I'm one half of the dynamic duo of Steak and Sauce. My name is Derek Nowlin. Unfortunately, today, Antonio couldn't be here. He's under the weather, so y'all pray for him, please, and his family. He'll get back to us soon. We definitely want to give a shout out to everybody that continues to support us on this show. Please stop what you're doing right now. Put that burger down. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification button so you can know and be tuned in to everything that we got coming your guys' way. We have a very special guest here today, Miss Jojo. Let's give a round of applause for that. Very special guest. You guys do not want to miss this episode. This person sitting across from me has a testimony and a story. It's unbelievable. This week, we want you guys to continue to support Weston at carmack.media on IG and continue to support Scott Bunn at Finding Your Place on YouTube and continue to reach out to him for any of your housing needs to sell a home. If you're looking at renting or you're looking at getting your first property for your portfolio, hit him up, please. So this week, first of all, Weston.
Yeah.
How's your week been?
Well, it's been good. I mean, other than yesterday when Tech lost. That
was rough, right?
Yeah, it sucked. Like,
yeah.
Refs were paid that game for
They
sure.
were super paid. I keep telling people Tech is business first, scoreboard second. A lot of people going to get mad at me for that. Just hold what you got. Just listen to me, okay? I really do see that, though. So, yeah. Well, Jojo, how has your week been so far?
It's been good. It's been full, but it's been really good.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear. So are you a big sports fan?
No.
Okay. All right. That's okay. That is okay. My dad, I think he went through 3 remotes yesterday. Probably. Guaranteed. He supports Tech, diehard fan, but when they lose, he just has a big problem. So, Dad, it's going to be all right. We're going to come back again. So, we'll be all right. So, Weston, you were actually at the Tech game.
I was sitting in the south end zone.
The south end zone. And tell me a little bit about that south end zone. It's a little bit different, right?
Oh, man, yeah. I just want to first off reference, I don't usually sit there. Those aren't my people.
Okay, those are not,
No, they're way too rich for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So my dad somehow scored tickets for the south end zone, like the suite, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I walked in there. Dude, it's eerily quiet for a Tech game.
Right.
Like, the people aren't standing up. They're not jumping during Inner Sandman. I think I might have saw like a few people doing it.
If you don't jump,
that's like sacrilegious.
It is. First of all, you're not jumping. They should have escorted them out immediately. Get up, okay? We know you got a lot of money. It smells like a 401k and some aspirin cream over here, but you know what? You guys need to get up and do what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
Right. So those people were not your people.
Nah, I'd rather be, honestly, I'd rather be sitting in the nosebleeds with the crazy people.
Well, yes.
That's where I want to sit.
Yes, the Warriors are up there, right?
Exactly.
What did you tell me you saw a guy doing with the beer can outside the stadium?
Dude, okay, so I was sitting on the south end zone, right?
Yeah.
And if you've been to Lane Stadium, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm looking out onto the field. It's to the left, right?
Yeah.
This guy's sitting on the very end. So he's sitting on the very end, and it's concrete. It's like a concrete stadium, right?
Okay.
He has his hand over with an empty metal Bud Light can, and he's like banging it on the side. I could hear him in the south end zone over all of the cheering. That's how hard he was hitting it. It was like the perfect place for him to hit it, for it to echo, and you could hear it like everywhere.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It was crazy. I was like, I told my brother, I was like, someone needs to stop him because we're gonna end up at the next game, and everyone's gonna be doing that.
Everybody's gonna be doing that.
Someone needs to stop him.
Yes, it's gonna be a problem. And you wasn't the only person that heard him doing that.
Oh no, definitely not. Because even my brother looked over. He's like looking around, and I'm like, "Is that guy?" And my brother's like, "Yeah, that's what I was looking for."
It's that guy. We found it. So were you hearing it for a period of time before you identified where it was coming from?
No, I don't know how. I just immediately looked over and I just happened to see the guy hitting it.
Right.
I think it was because the sun started to come out and it was kind of like, it was blue, so it was kind of reflective. So it just, I gravitated towards it. But
Right. I wonder if he had any teeth.
honestly, I'm not going to say anything about it, you know.
I'm just playing. So those people are not your people.
Mm-hmm.
What did Kate Upton say? We got a current event. What was she talking about, Weston?
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you guys follow baseball, I don't really follow baseball, but I was watching because the Phillies wrote it, right?
Okay.
And Kate Upton is married to oh shoot, I don't remember his name, but she's married to someone on the baseball or the Astros.
Okay.
Right. And he's getting kind of close to that age in baseball where he probably should look at retiring. And so they asked her, they were like, because she was standing behind him, he was holding his kid, and they asked her, they're like, well, what do you think about him retiring? And she's like, he can play as long as he wants, as long as he's doing what he loves. And
Good response.
And I was just sitting there. I looked at my brother, and I was like, Tom Brady's punching the air right now.
Punching the
his
air.
wife just divorced him over the exact same thing.
Yeah. He is punching and kicking the air right now.
Yeah.
Like, where can I get one of those? This is when we would reference right now what we see on TikTok. You need to come and get one of these.
Yeah.
What's that? A chicken salad, and then input a picture of her. Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's when we would drop that right now. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? To have Tom Brady like, you need to go get one of them chicken salads for real, for sure. That's hilarious. So I want to ask both of y'all, what song is on repeat on y'all's playlist right now, new or old, or a certain album that's fire for y'all this week?
Oh, I pull up my Spotify.
Victoria's Secret by Jax.
Ooh, okay. I actually peeped that one.
I like that one.
That's a good one.
People are gonna think that I'm like Zach Wilson or something from the Jets. I've been listening to Stacy's Mom a lot.
Stacy's what? Let's go, Weston.
That's a good song.
Let's
though.
go, Stacy's Mom.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Hey, listen, that was a life changer when I heard that one. You know,
it's a good song. Yeah,
because we didn't have a Stacy's mom, but we had somebody's mom that was in the neighborhood. And I'm gonna be honest with you, and if she's watching this right now, she already knows what time it is. Bruh, I'm talking about biscuits and gravy thick. You know what I'm saying? Like sawmill, you know, like bad. So I was sitting here like when you said that, you know me, I ain't got no sense. It already prompted like.
I guarantee like every guy you say that song, their mind immediately thinks of someone's mom.
Somebody's mom.
Always.
Somebody's mom. And the crazy thing is like, we didn't realize like they were timeless. Because even if you look at those women now, she's still going to Jazzercise. She still got good snacks in her house.
Yeah.
She got a savings account. She doing stuff, bro. I'm telling you. And that's where you want to be. Listen, you don't need a kiss. I need a check. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care about nothing. I need the check. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We don't care about none of that other stuff. So during the week, I take some time and I get with you, Weston, and we try to find some videos on social media that make us laugh. And I want to share it with you guys so I can get y'all's reaction. So we'll run a couple of them right quick.
I want to. That's my email. Green.
And we can ride the boogie, share that beat of love.
So these are some historic facts that we may not know about Martin Luther King. I did not know that. That's pretty cool. And the reason I prompted this video, Jojo, because when I talked to you, you talked about the march and everything we're going through. And then I saw this and I was like, oh, that'd be perfect because I didn't know those facts either. Yeah.
So did you hear the story about his have a dream?
Wasn't it something, there was someone in the crowd?
Yes.
So tell me about this, please.
Yeah, you're right. So
Okay.
like he had his notes written and he was going to say this completely different speech.
Okay.
But he was nervous and he was fumbling. And someone in the crowd was like, tell him about the dream, Martin. Tell him about the dream. And that's when he started saying, I have a dream.
Really?
Yep.
So he had a whole different
Speech.
think about the chain of events. had he not, you know what I'm saying? Had he not done that, you know? And if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, I Had a Dream speech, he already had all that memorized, right?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep, that came from his heart.
That's incredible. That's really incredible. We got to figure out who that lady was.
I know who it was. It was a singer, actually.
Okay.
I don't want to say her name wrong, but it was a very famous singer.
Got you. And she told him like, hey, that's amazing.
Tell him about the dream.
Tell him about the dream. Hey, we're going to look into that. We're going to figure out who that was for sure. Can we run the next one?
Yep.
All right. So if anybody is on social media, TikTok, anywhere, you've definitely seen this going through Baltimore, the Park Heights area. So these young guys, I've been following them for a while. And you know, when you get this guy on there from that news channel, you've made it. Because all the dances, all the fun dances, he winds up being there. So I'm glad they hooked up with him and they were able to do this. So this is one of those dances I think is going to be around for a while. So I'm proud of those guys for sure. I tried to do this in Walmart, had to ice my knee afterwards. So I'm just going to put that out there, you know. So it's not for everybody. Make sure you stretch before you get down with this. Weston, you think you can do that?
I don't know if that guy in the suit can do it. I could probably do it.
Yeah, Weston got a little swag, so I think he can pull that off for sure. Yeah, that's what's up.
Question is, how long is it going to be before we start seeing wide receivers and running backs doing this?
This is going to this is the next thing for sure in the end zone. And shout out to Tim's, by the way. Tim's, she's the singer that's her song that they're playing. They remix, so that's really cool though. Oh gosh. Let's go. Hey, that's how I'm sliding into work tomorrow.
I love it.
Hey, come on now. Get out of here.
Oh.
That's like 40 feet.
I know. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's longer than 40 feet. Bro, that's hilarious. So I'm just wondering, are these people waiting on him because he lives there and this is something he does daily? Or like, look at everybody, bro. There's balloons, there's a cop. Like, what's going on? Did he get that hat from his grandmother? The robe definitely came from the shoes. The shoes. Okay.
Dumb.
Yes. What are those flats?
I don't know.
What's he got going on right there? Kids are outside, everybody. So I'm wondering, like, yeah, we can wait for him to come outside. He'll do the dance. I could so see Tonio doing this. I swear. Tonio, when you watch this, I could see you doing this right here in your neighborhood, I promise. That slide was perfect.
I know. That's what makes me think that like he's been practicing that for a while. That's why other people were standing there.
Like, how is he so on point? Like, there's no way you should be that on point.
I still want to know what shoes those are.
Right. We're going to look at that. She said, I still want to know what shoes those are. For sure. Oh. She's like, huh? Yep. Like, if I had kids and I looked in the back seat,
I wouldn't keep video recording.
would you keep going? Would you keep going? Or just like, I mean, it's cute, but it's like, you don't want them doing that, but like, how can you not laugh at that? And she's vibing for real. Big bros next to her, like, yeah. That's hilarious. And listen to the song in the background. That's even funnier. Daggone, man, that's crazy. That is hilarious. All right, here we go. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, that voice smooth. Hey, let's go. What do you think his name is? I think his name's Randy.
Randy. I was going to think Ronald.
Ronald,
So
okay.
Yeah.
He's definitely a Randy Ronald. Bro, look.
I know.
Is he the instructor? I think he's got an earpiece. My favorite part's when they pull up the 40 here in a second. Hey. Now, if that's the music that they were really listening to, that's hilarious, bro. I'm gonna be crying. Like, he's definitely doing it though. Yeah. I want to be that unbothered at that age for sure. Is that the last one we got? Or we got one more? Oh man, that was a good videos for this week for sure. So without further ado, Jojo, man, we got a lot to get into. So I kind of wanted to start back a little bit to give people, Steak and Sauce family, kind of like a preview into like your childhood, where you grew up, the culture, how that was. So can you go into that for us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually grew up in Belize.
Okay.
It's a small country in the Caribbean.
Okay.
My mother is actually from a people group called Garifuna. So it's Arawak Indian, Carib Indian, and African. So I grew up very much like in Africa. Bread baskets on the head, the traditional African attire, drums, no shoes to go to school. I mean, very third world country, as much as you can think of.
Wow.
Right on the beaches of Belize.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
So, like, take us through a day.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like growing, like waking up? Did you have certain things you had to do before you went to school? Was there public transport? Did you guys kind of group together and go to school? How was that?
So through a day of school, you wake up, of course, you had your breakfast, and our breakfast is very light. So we actually call it tea time. So
Okay.
Belize used to be owned by England. So we have tea, dinner, tea. We don't have breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Tea?
Dinner, tea.
Okay. All right.
So we would have our tea time in the morning, which oftentimes was like sugar and water, even because we didn't have enough money for juice.
Okay.
And then brushing our teeth. Sometimes we didn't have toothpaste, so we used baking soda. And sometimes no deodorant, so we use lime, in fact, instead of deodorant. So going to school, we had one pair of shoes that was reserved for school. But oftentimes when you came home from school, you'd take those shoes off and then you'd enjoy the streets without any.
And I think there's a benefit to that, right? Like I read that, what they call it, getting grounded, like putting your feet in the earth on the grass is supposed to ground us. And a lot of people do it like a couple times a week. And I'm sure like, cause the bottom of our feet is like the gateway for so many things, right? So I'm sure there's supreme health benefits to what you guys, not in a funny way, but in like a real way, like connecting like that, because we wear shoes all the time.
It was nasty.
Right.
I had hobbit feet, so I don't know about the whole connection with the earth. But that sounded good. Okay, I'll use it next time.
I tried, Jojo. I tried. She said I had hobbit
They were
feet.
calluses.
Right, yeah. So,
I could walk on hot rocks and not feel the heat. Like
Whoa.
that is how calloused my feet were.
so y'all were really in the streets like
We were up in the streets.
up in the streets. That's crazy. So family, do you come from a big family, small family? What was the family dynamic like?
Oh, the family dynamic for me is very interesting. So my father is white American.
Okay.
And my mother's skin tone is dark. You know, she's from an African descent and she's very black. And so growing up there with her, everyone thought I was adopted. And because I grew up in a very African village-like culture, I was literally the lightest person in all my town. So they called me white girl.
Wow.
Even the the post person was like, girl, white girl, you got some mail. I'm like, thank you.
Right. So the whole village, everyone.
Yep.
So, and you were there up until the age of
15.
15. Mm-hmm. Wow. So what all languages do you speak?
I speak 3 languages.
Okay. All right.
English, of course, Creole, which is not Haitian Creole, so it's not French Creole, but it's a different form of Creole.
All right.
And then Garifuna, which is an African dialect.
And you're fluent in all these.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's amazing. That's amazing. I think like anytime somebody can program their brain, to pick that kind of stuff up, because it's very hard. It's like playing an instrument, like you use different parts of your brain for that. So that's really cool. So out of those languages that you speak, would you have to like interject them simultaneously, or was it certain regions that you would have to speak those, or how'd that work?
So in all of Belize, the official language is English. However, we speak Creole amongst the people that are there. And then Garifuna, we spoke only really in our town and with the people in our town.
Okay.
So Belize is very segregated based upon culture. So I grew up in the culture of Garifuna, but you go to a different city, it's a whole different culture.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So infrastructure wise, like some of the things that were available to you guys, like were there parks or like recreational stuff, or like how was that?
Yep, all of that. So Belize is really huge about their sports. In fact, what is her name? Gabrielle, the gymnast.
Yes.
Her parents are from Belize.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so whenever she went in the Olympics, she always carries an American flag and a Belizean flag.
Wow.
So, Marion Jones and very famous people throughout history who were athletes who came to America for opportunities. So we're big about sports, we're big about parks, we're big about being outdoors. I had friends that were Canadians that started a kayaking shop down there. So kayaking, sea kayaking was my thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you like to fish? Do you like to do all those things? Or
I suck at fishing. Okay. I mean, I don't, football or soccer is like the thing. And I was not coordinated. So I didn't do none of that.
Okay.
When I was on the basketball team, they played me the last game, the last 5 minutes. And that was all I played.
The whole season.
The whole season.
I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing. Last game, last 5 minutes.
Yep.
Did you score?
No, but I felt so good.
You felt good.
I was
Hey,
like, yes.
She was in there. She's locked in. Defense was on point. Hey, round of applause for that. Listen, you still participated. So look, you know what? And not only that, how many practices did you had to go to for that 5 minutes?
I was also the fastest runner on the team. I will say that, but I could not coordinate.
I was like, what are y'all doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, let me get the ball, So that's great. So any other sports side basketball, or was that it?
That was pretty, well, I mean, I tried soccer, but I'm really not. When I'm saying I'm not coordinated.
So you don't dance?
I dance though. See?
Oh, okay.
But I dance.
All
Give me
right.
some salsa, some Latin music, okay?
All right now. So, all right. Okay. All right. So up until the age of 15, and then you moved from Belize, and then you came to Roanoke, Virginia, ladies and gentlemen. Roanoke. All right. Tell us about that. How'd that work out?
So my father lived here in America, and so he was very countrified. So I lived amongst the cows and rolling hills, and I would cry every day, missing my beaches and my water and the sand beneath my feet.
Right.
And I would speak to the random cows. I mean, it was lonely growing up over there.
Right.
But it was different. Roanoke's very different. The number one thing that I spotted real quick was the huge segregation that is happening in Roanoke compared to where I grew up in Belize. Now, understand, I'm the skin tone, looking that I am, grew up in Belizean culture with all blacks.
Right.
To come to Roanoke in the country where it was the complete opposite and it was all whites.
Right.
And so the culture clashes were very hard for me.
Yeah.
I remember trying to get close to one of my friends. I was like, I'm going to pay her a compliment today. And it was a white girl. I was like, I'm going to pay her a compliment today.
Yeah.
I was like, girl, your butt big.
Hey, well, she was like,
look, I went straight to the principal's office, got in trouble for offending her. And this is before Kim Kardashian. So, like back then, that was a huge diss.
Right,
apparently.
you know what I'm saying? You got a little...
But in the black culture, it's like, that's a compliment, girl.
Yeah, I called a shelf. I was like, you got a little shelf back there. You know what I'm saying? Like, we gotta put some on there. You know what I'm saying? A little shelf. So you told her, hey, sweetheart.
You look good.
Kind of thick. Next thing you know, take you up front.
Yes.
So what happened after that?
So after that, I kind of started observing the white culture that I was in. And I started saying less and started just seeing more. And different things I kept getting wrong, right? So number one thing that I really remember that I was like, oh, I got this. I nailed down the American culture finally is in every time in youth, like groups or whatever like that, they would always ask, all right, say a name and then say a fun fact about you.
Okay.
So I was like, this is how Americans introduce themselves. Like I thought it was brilliant.
Right.
So every time I would meet someone new, I would say a name and I'd say my fun fact.
Yeah.
My ancestors were cannibals.
Bro.
And
What?
that is the look that I got. I was like, what in the world? I'm sharing a fun fact.
Right, like, hey, everybody in the room, like, just like we can't just skip over that, you know, we just can't put that out there, and we just. So your ancestors,
Yep, the Carib Indians
were cannibals.
were cannibals.
Now, was that against people that were coming that they would interact with, like around their tribe or within?
You're right, the enemies.
The enemies.
So
Okay, cool.
it was actually a sign of great respect.
To be eaten.
Yeah, to be eaten. Columbus, and as a matter of fact, this is written history.
Okay.
Columbus took some of the Carib Indians and took them to Spain because Queen Isabella was fascinated at that time of people that were tribal and cannibalistic.
Wow. So would they interact with the enemy? Obviously, they would clash. Would these people be dead prior to this, this
Oh, no.
ceremony, this, or they would be alive?
What
And,
would be the fun of that?
for me, I would hope they go ahead and finish me off. Y'all can prepare the ribs how y'all want to, but just go ahead and take me out because I don't want to be, So these people were alive.
Yeah, so some of them were alive, some of them were dead. I mean, it just depended because even amongst the Carib Indians were many tribes. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, white colonialism, with Columbus, they actually just listed all Indians that were savages or ate people as Carib.
Got you.
It's not the fact that each one of them, that was their tribal name. And then any Indian that was peaceful as Arawak.
Wow.
So it just depended upon which tribe was in the Carib.
Wow. Word association.
Interesting.
I read about, there was this scribe that was produced and they wrote a bunch of the Indian names in this book. I think it was post like Trail of Tears. And those people in that book were the ones the government is trying to compensate now. The issue was they had two different lists. They had the one side of Indians, and then they had the Black Seminoles who fought and were right there with them, but they didn't realize they were signing on two different sides of this book. So the government doesn't necessarily recognize the other side, and that's like a big thing right now. I don't know if you heard about that. But
I haven't, and it's really interesting to me because Carib Indians and Arawak Indians are in the American Indian Museum. In DC, right? So you can see some works of arts and stuff like that they did throughout history, but they're associated with the Caribbean. So even though my mother is like full-blown Carib Indian, Arawak Indian, an African, and we're like recognized by, worldwide governments as a dying people group because there's only a few of us left.
wow.
America does not recognize it, even though because it's part of the Americas, but it's not in the U.S. soil. Gotcha. So I get no special American Indian privileges or, association with anything within American soil.
Wow. You learn something new every day. That's so interesting. So how was it? You talked about culture shock. What more culture shock could you get than coming from Belize to Roanoke, Virginia, right? Kind of like the countryside of Roanoke, because there's multiple areas, of course, and you know that. So high school, how was that? Were you on track to kind of understanding, okay, this is what I want to do after high school? Did you have a plan? Did you want to stay in this area? What did that look like for you?
So I guess that kind of started in Belize. I was very independent, even in Belize.
Okay.
And children are independent. By the time they're 13, you're considered a woman. You can drink. You can drop out of school. You can start having kids at 13.
13 years old.
At 13 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So from the age of 13, I was very independent. Got my first job waitressing in a restaurant in Belize. Started actually a youth group down there. Found funding for it. And we would put on youth classes every weekend whenever I was 12 years old. And because I was 12, I was like, okay, I can't be anyone older than 10. So I've always been extremely independent and knowing kind of like I wanted to be in academia, but I didn't know like what direction I wanted to go to. Harry Potter was like a big save for me to read in Belize. And Hermione was my girl. I was like, oh, she starts, studying for her test in the beginning for the final. I'm going to start doing that. So I used to test very high in Belize. Coming to America was very hard. There is actually not enough transition programs for youth. Whenever you transition, they were like, oh, well, you speak English, good enough. But in Belize, because it was owned by England, all my English vocabs were British words.
Wow.
So color, like how you spell different things. So it was a huge turning point for me in trying to catch up and understand American culture, their language, phrases that are used. Right. And this is my American accent that I put on, but it's not actually naturally how I talk. Okay. And I learned early on, I don't want people to ask me where I'm from. So I'm going to watch as much TV as I possibly can to nail down some sort of accent.
This is your professional.
This is my professional.
This is your work. Yes, all right. You know what I'm saying? So when we get home,
it's a whole other side. So we ain't going to be talking about that.
We ain't going to talk about that. All right. Yeah. So, and I think a lot of us, when we get placed in certain rooms, we fill out the room and we know, all right, I'm going to conduct myself like this. I'm going to bring up these topics. I'm going to talk like this. Because 9 times out of 10, we're going into somewhere where we need help. We need someone to help us with something. So we're already looking at them and we're kind of judging ourselves through them. How do they see me? So let me dial back any like stereotypes that they may have already, or if they're fearful because of my size or anything, let me dial that back. Let me be gentle. Let me be soft-spoken. Let me be very articulate. And we have to do that all the time, right?
You are so accurate, because I was a very studious individual and I was actually an extreme introvert. But I come to America and I read in a science journal one time that if you have bigger eyes and if you have a wide smile, that people automatically assume you're an extrovert. And so coming to America, I got pushed a lot into putting on what I felt like was a performance. And I was so smart at a young age with all these huge vocabs from everything that I've read, but in an area that people couldn't relate to. I couldn't relate to my classmates. I mean, I lived a life by the time I was in high school, whereas they were just beginning theirs. And I could not relate to circumstances, I knew what it was to go hungry, and I knew what it was to go out and hustle and get your own money in order for you not to go hungry. Right. So I didn't know how to relate and talk about bags or, like just the small things. Right. And then I started learning how to dumb my words. That way I was much more accepted as the norm amongst my peers. Right. So I 100% agree with you as far as everything that you're saying. And it's funny because it was how people interpreted me. Yeah. It wasn't who I truly was at that time.
And that's crazy that your classmates, like you said, and you just brought some perspective to us, they're worried about football practice, what chores they got to do, what the day's going to look like. They forgot lunch money. And you've already worked several jobs. You've already started programs. You've been taking care of yourself. So I couldn't imagine you not being able to relate even on a maturity level, with some of the stuff that was going on. Cause you're like, what? Like, I've been having to work before school, work after school, do this, that, take care of people. So that's pretty interesting. So did you receive any backlash, like integrating into like the schools here? Were you able to, I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes, and especially when I was in school, we had some issues with other schools that would come to our school for like automotives and doing certain things. So I don't want to get into it too much, but were there ever times where you felt like you weren't protected, or they didn't have your best interest, or bullying, anything like that?
Funny enough, I didn't tolerate bullying.
Right.
So Belize, I was a fighter early on. Right. You go to school, you got your lunch money,
Jojo got hands. Jojo got hands, just to let y'all know, okay? Yeah.
So I never was bullied in high school. I will say that.
Okay.
The second part of this story is my first name. So Jojo is actually short for Jonathan.
Jonathan.
I was named after my dad, and I went by Jonathan for a huge majority of my life.
That's cool.
And so here I was in high school, this girl from Belize named Jonathan. So that even, made things a little bit more complicated in classes. But no one ever made fun of my name. No one ever made fun of who I was. Right. And if they did, it was so far behind my back, I didn't hear about it. So
it usually is. It usually is, though, right? That's how it goes, They didn't want that smoke with JoJo. I'm telling you right now. And Jonathan, I'd have been like, yo, here comes Jonathan. Like, I'm going to tuck mine in, No.
What's funny, though, I will say to answer your question, I never had an issue with peers, but I did have a large issue with teachers and school system. And I was very verbal about it. Yeah. When I transferred to a Christian school in high school, they didn't actually celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Really?
Mm-mm. And that was allegedly because he had affairs. And so they didn't recognize someone that, was so far from sin, quote unquote. Right. And so I spent my whole entire computer class writing a letter to my principal, talking about how, when I was 14, talking about how the only way I'm here is because of that man.
Right.
And how at the very least we could do is have a moment of silence. Because a black woman in America and a white man, late 80s, would not have actually been a possibility without someone pushing that, hey, we need to, integrate and be together in unity.
Right.
And when I gave it to him, he looked at me. He was like, "Did somebody help you?" I was like, "No, nobody helped me with this." So anyways, but I was always constantly fighting those type of things in school.
At 14.
Yeah.
Advocating like that at 14. I mean, that's incredible. And that just shows and we talked about this, people's perspective, right? So we're going to omit, we had a saying in the military, one mistake messes up a whole lot of attaboys, right? Mm. So all the attaboys and accolades that he had, right? They wanted to pick out the one thing that they felt diminished all the other great accomplishments that he had. And we're going to stick on this one thing to say as why we don't participate or celebrate that in our facility, in our system. Mm-hmm. And nobody checked that, but JoJo, right? So that to me is just, and that shows that we still have a long way to go, a long way. We're making strides, but we still have a long way to go. So upon graduation, I think you started out in elementary. What was it?
Elementary education.
Elementary education. That's right. So did you know for sure you wanted to be a teacher, and how'd that go?
No.
All right.
Okay. So the high school that I went to, women were always put into serving roles.
Okay.
So you either became a teacher, you became a nurse, and I found that as much as I love children, I still, am very much involved with different entrepreneurship classes for kids today, et cetera. I don't have the patience of them on a daily basis. Right. And I don't have that little servant streak because at one point I'd be like, yo, okay, so let's get this correct.
Get yourself together.
Let's get this correct. But yeah, I went on to do that, and it didn't feel right. And yet I wasn't exposed to enough careers where women were in power. I didn't even know I was type A because my whole culture and society was saying you as a woman should be quiet, should be shy, should be, pretend like you're dropping books for the man to pick. Why?
Right.
I want to carry my own books, so I wasn't taught to embrace who I was as an early age and then propel and use that. And me being an elementary education teacher today just would make me laugh. I love our teachers and I love our everything. It's just for me, that was not a good fit.
Right.
Yeah.
And you found that out pretty quickly, right?
I did.
Right.
I went one semester. I had a 4-year scholarship for my writing because I scored pretty high in my ACTs.
Okay.
And so they literally were going to cover 100% of my schooling no matter where I was going to decide to go within the state of Virginia. And so I went for one semester and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm not interested. I don't know what I want. And it's funny. I took a wide left because of all my childhood background and all the baggage, mental baggage and emotional baggage I carried. I thought, man, I need to be saved from my situation. And I married at 19.
Wow.
Yep. Met my ex-husband at 18 and married at 19. Wow. And then we had kids at 21. We bought our first home at 23. I mean, I was living this whole other life where I was a stay-at-home mom the whole entire time.
Wow. So do you think that kind of blended with the culture that you grew up in? Because like you said, at 13, these young women are taking on kind of identities and lives, and they're still trying to figure out who they are. So do you think that played a part in that? Or was it you were looking for something different, like the security of a family and thinking that's what you needed to do? Or, you know, how did that?
I love that question. And to be honest, when you don't have a strong adult or mentor in your life,
Yeah.
you start seeking outside sources to guide your life. And so what guided my life a lot of times was TV. And so here I was in Belize, you know, my mother in and out of jail, my stepdad in and out of jail, me taking care of sometimes my little brother, you know, trying to figure out life, abuse going on, etc. And I was like, the only ones that I have to look up to are my books and what I see on TV. And every one of those, whether it's books or TV, always has such a simple message with an easy solution in the end. And that's the only thing that I will say is very unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so my first boyfriend ever, I was like, oh my gosh, it's true love.
Right.
You know, met this guy. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And we were so miserable. You know, and we're good friends to this day because we have a huge understanding that we were pressured as a young children to try to make these huge decisions. I once heard this young girl say that by the time you're 18, here you are, have to ask for a pass to go to the bathroom. And then they expect you to understand your whole life in one birthday.
Wow. That's some perspective for you. So I'm glad that you said this. You made a good point. For everybody out there who may have been in a relationship or marriage early on, right? Early 20s. You said you guys are still friends to this day. Mm-hmm. That comes with growth. Mm-hmm. That comes with understanding. That comes from perspective. And I think that that's beautiful, you know, because you realize both of us were still trying to figure out who we were as individuals. We didn't even know who we were. Now we're bringing your childhood, everything that you went through, and mine. We merged that. Now we have our own family, and we're trying to establish traditions, establish parenting and discipline and all these different things at such a young age. Mm-hmm. So when you were doing that, what was your shift in focus after being a stay-at-home mom? What was the next avenue that you went through in your professional career?
So one of my friends was into promotional marketing.
Okay.
And so she was like, hey, we have an event. We need someone. And so I got drawn into that, working for Ford and doing marketing for them. And it was such a natural sense for me that I got pretty high up and in the marketing arena and started doing marketing with Wheel of Fortune, Harley Davidson. I put on their Beach Fest that's up in Ocean City, Maryland.
Wow.
I traveled with the NFL, which was really fun. You know, they put me up in a hotel, flights, my car in that city.
Everything.
Me and just me and two other girls. And so we would travel to each NFL stadium, and we were in charge of the promotional marketing and the items, the like koozies, the sales that were going on at each of these locations.
Right.
And I was the team lead. And so that was actually in partnership with an entrepreneurship program as well to help empower women and educate women in what it is to be doing marketing in your own business. Wow. So along with that, we also were taking classes But that was a lot of fun, out there being involved, but it was also extensive traveling. And as I mentioned, I have kids. So being 6 weeks on the road and then not having to see my kids was so hard.
Yeah.
And yet I was also battling with the fact that I'm 23, 24, 25 years old. Also with 3 young babies because I married so early, you know, so it was such a weird dynamic of life because people saw my age and they're like, oh yeah, you're young, we gonna party. I'm like, man, no, I gotta go home.
Right.
You know, so it was a very interesting area of life. So I went from that traveling and then came back to Roanoke, put down some roots. Roanoke didn't know much about the marketing that I'm exposed to. So I started my own company and that was about 5 years ago.
Right before we get into that, you said that you handled some of the marketing and stuff for the NFL teams. I went to a Dallas Cowboys game, speaking of marketing, and I walked in and we went to the concession stands, right? They were trying to sell us this Dallas Cup and you can get free refills and all this other stuff. They charged me $20 for a 16-ounce Sprite. The Philly cheesesteak was dry. It was $18. So I walked out like almost at $50 and the dude was like, you might want to get 2. He's like, because I saw your ticket and where y'all going to be sitting. He's like, you're not going to be able to come back down here again. So I felt like he was trying to say something about our seats and everything like that. But they really are pulling in a lot of money in so many different areas.
Our salaries were huge.
I couldn't imagine.
And they were also, part of it was commission based as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. And then you get up there, you're not even looking at the field because Jerry Jones has done secured the biggest screen in the entire world. So I barely even, Weston, I never looked at the field. I was literally just watching the screen the whole time. But when you said that, I thought.
And I'm not into sports.
Yeah, she's not. I was about to jump back there. I'm like, for the NFL, she's not into sports. Like, did you meet players? Like, autographs? Like, I'm sure they handed out stuff all the time.
They did. And I didn't meet any of the players, believe it or not, doing it. I wasn't interested because of my lack of interest in sports. I was more interested in falling in love with the cities. So I could not wait till we had a little free time and explore. And I think my 2 favorite cities with like the biggest loving fans, well, probably 3, would have been Jersey, Philly, and Detroit.
Yeah, West End, let's go, Philly. Sing the song, West End.
Philly people, they were so loving. They got their whole like fire trucks that they would bring out to the parking lot, get their guys out, and like just have like a party right there in the parking lot. So
and Philly fans,
fun.
they're different, So he's a big Eagles fan, so when you said Philly, I knew he was going to light up immediately. So with the Wheel of Fortune, can you dive a little bit more into that? What was that like?
So it was Wheel of Fortune Mobile.
Okay.
So this is the part where they actually find the people to get on the stage. So they would set up at state fairs. So I went to Richmond a few times with them, and also Florida, which was, I think, one of the funnest ones to go to.
Florida's lit,
Really, really cool group of people. No, the real Vanna wasn't there. Like everyone's like, did you meet them? No.
Right.
They used like a fake Vanna, to do the wave. And but being a part of that crew and being a part of that team was really magical and was really amazing. So how they gauge, it's actually a little secret. But how they gauge.
Can you put it out?
Yeah, I can put it out. It'll be fun.
All right.
How they gauge it is the fact that they just picked random people to come up to play the game, but they wondered how the crowd reacted to them.
Okay.
And then that's when they would be like, well, you did such a good job. We wanted to invite you on TV. Because they're looking for people with personalities, which is interesting to me because I do watch the show and I'm like, these people lack a lot of personality. So I don't know what happened to that? In translation.
Yeah. There was one dude that got up there and they were asking him questions. He literally just stared at the camera. And I was like, oh, this is awkward. Like, I don't know if this is going to
They're overwhelmed because whenever we find them in person, like we have the whole crowd and the energy is and the fake Vanna, who I'm still good friends with, she is really good as far as like, she's much more interactive and warm.
Okay.
Which makes the whole show so much more fun.
Right. If they're basing this off of energy and personality, if I got up there, Wes, and I'm telling you right now, I'd put my fist through that like paper that they have on like the back side of the wheel. You got to do something different. You know what I'm saying? If you want to come back, you're going to have to do something different, you know? So that's probably what I would do. Like upon getting up there, just go ahead and punch it. So you started an amazing company called Sisters of Change.
Yes.
Can you dive into that for us a little bit?
Sisters of Change was my heart project. Okay. So there was a lot of just different things that was seen in Roanoke. You know, first was the division of zip code. Like literally one of the first questions people ask you if they don't know you or where you're from is where you live or where your zip code is. Because they want to know, oh, okay, then based on that, I can tell what your demographics, your background, and what your salary range would be.
Really?
Yes, it's very interesting. And there are a lot of nonprofits in different sectors. You know, you have like the Latinas Network, you have different people in different, you know, having their nonprofits. However, in those sectors, they support that nonprofit. It's not a lot of cross, or it's not a lot of let's get together in the sake of unity for unity's sake. So I was in a meeting about Black business in Roanoke, and they were talking about how the different blocks that they've had in growing a business in Roanoke. Okay. And at that time, there was a lady named Trish White Boyd who was sitting there and it was on the panel, and she has a business. And I loved what she had to say. And I just had an immediate connection to her. Yeah. And I've probably had like 3 or 4 failed business. So at that time, I was trying to do put on your events. I was trying to do your event business, right? So I gave her my card. I was like, let's connect afterwards. And she sure enough called me. We went to a little small deli shop and we started dreaming of where Roanoke can be and how the unity that we could see. And we put down on paper. And for a while, it was just like wine and chocolate night with some girls. And we hung and we talked about, man, this needs to change every month. This needs to change. Well, I am not one to talk very long. So I got kind of tired of that.
Right.
I was like, okay, well, in 3 weeks, I'm going to put an event on. I'm going to put a conference on. It was supposed to be only like 20 women. Turned out to be 200 people that showed up to our first conference, and it was a blast. It was amazing. But overall, what Sisters of Change does is we were really big about advocating, in a sense, on behalf of nonprofits who wear so many different hats, that fundraising is really the last one, but it's the most needed thing that's on their plate. Right. And so we started doing fundraising, organizing events and conferences. Anything that the community needed was a spot that we filled. We were called on for one young lady who was dying of cancer, and someone called us and was like, hey, can you help us put on an event in 3 days, a prom, inviting all of Roanoke to come, and 100% of it was donated. The whole entire event was donated. The whole community came on. It caught a lot of news, and she unfortunately did pass away 3 weeks after this event. So it was all about changing lives and touching lives, and the women that were a part of it were just amazing. This is what we poured. None of us were ever paid for the events, and over the 5 years, we raised around $300,000.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And I'm sure to be a part of something like that, you started writing stuff on paper. You guys are dreaming about, okay, it could be this, it could be that. To see something like that happen, come to fruition, you're a part of it, like that's real change. And you mentioned something before that. You said you had 3 failed businesses, right? Mm-hmm. I also had a failed business. And I think that it's great that you can come on here and say that, because those attempts to do something was just pushing you into the right door that you needed to be.
Agree.
You know, because at the time it's very hurtful. You're down on yourself. You feel like, am I going to pick up the pieces and try again? So you had enough fortitude to not try once. Were these businesses all in the same realm or different? Like, were you selling stuff? Did you have like a brick and mortar store? Were you like?
So they were all in the same realm. They were all providing services, but I wasn't sure what my approach would be, who it would be. I even did wedding planning, which I'm good at. I just can't be a counselor, dude. Like, I mean, Girls would come to me and be like, yo, it's 10 p.m. I got to get my beauty sleep in, you know, whatever. But it's hard. It's hard. If you're an event planner and you're doing weddings, it's very hard work.
So you're getting some tea along with.
Yes.
You know,
I was like, it ain't worth the money.
Right.
And I used to do 6-figure weddings at Ritz-Carlton's at DC.
6-figure weddings?
6-figure wedding. And it still was not worth it.
I'll be like, look at here, shorty. We gonna do this 6-figure wedding, and after this, we still gonna need toothpaste. The mortgage is due. You know what I'm saying? So we might have to dial this back a little bit, you know? We can get 150 wings from Sharky's for like nothing, you know? So that's just me, though. But 6 figures? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you have it, I'm not judging anybody. But, you know.
There were a lot of Indian weddings that I did, and the 2 places that were most popular was Ritz-Carlton and Georgetown.
Okay.
And then I also did a lot at actually Trump golf course as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. How was that?
It was different. Actually, believe it or not, a lot of Indians like to. That was the only place that I had a lot of Indians doing weddings there. And so they would do like 2 days there and then another day because, you know, an Indian wedding is like a 3-day event.
Right.
Woo. Yeah. But it was interesting.
That's very interesting. You were also a part of, and you might have mentioned this, Dress in a Dream.
Dress and Dream. That's one of the programs that Sisters of Change had. And that was really special. We got a lot of news coverage on that one as well.
Okay.
But it was in partnership with Roanoke City Public Schools. And we had different ladies that did hair and makeup. We got dresses donated. And we full blown put on a magical time for young ladies who could not afford that done to get that done.
That's incredible.
And that was really amazing. And it was a heart project for me too. Every one of these, a lot of times, came from something that I lacked. So whenever I was in high school, my family couldn't afford prom dresses. They gave me $20 and they were like, figure it out. So with my $20, I went to the flea market. And I mean, one time I came up with a Asian dress for prom. And I was like, yeah, my aunt's Asian, which I do have an Asian aunt, but it had nothing to do with her. So like, I was like, that was the reason why I'm wearing my Asian dress.
Right, yeah. You know, we had to blanket that, you know, under the, you know, but you made it work though. And that, you know, she said, I got an aunt, you know what I'm saying? Like, she knows about this. But before you even said it, I was thinking like, there are so many young women and young men that we look over certain events because we may be fortunate enough to have the suit for prom, or our families come together to get the shoes. You get his shoes, I'll get his tux type of thing. That's what I experienced, right? And when you look good, you feel good, you're comfortable, it changes the whole aspect of the event, whatever you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. So we may think, oh, that's not that big of a deal, but it really is.
It really is.
Like if you have a young lady and she was not able to get her hair done, or she wasn't able to get her nails done, or certain things like that, and she sees all of her friends and they're like to the T, that has like I'm sure a huge impact, and it stays with the person, you know, I'm sure for a very long time. So you having something like that, giving these young women that opportunity to really experience what that's like, and that's something we overlook, you know, so that's huge. That's
I once got the best advice, and it was talking about how, you know, as adults, we have our own world. We got bills, you know, we got the big problems, right? And then we forget what it was when you're going through life. And the best advice and the best thing I've ever heard was we need to stay present in our children's world. Wow. And so what's important to them right now is getting a tux, is getting a dress. What's important to them right now might be going to the movie theater when all their other friends are. I mean, we've got to give more empathy to the situations of our children and be in our children's world, and stop trying to pull our children to the adult world and be like, well, I got bills, so we can't be doing this, you know?
Right.
So
yeah. And you know, you think that's a culture thing?
I think it is a culture thing. And I think it's a lack of dreams.
Right.
I think there comes a point where somehow society has told our people our young people that, hey, you got to grow up and look at all this money. Stop dreaming. Stop chasing your dreams, you know?
Right.
And I am a huge advocate, which is why it was called Dress and Dreams. But I'm a huge advocate that whatever special thing that you had in your mind when you were 6 and 7 years old, do it even when you're 40. You know, let's start changing and shifting and start really working in our purpose younger. Because I feel like when we work in our purpose younger, the rest of our life, we will never live a day without regret.
Right. That's powerful. That's very powerful. And I think it is cultural because we can get put in certain positions where you may be a young man like myself and you wear so many different hats within your own family that, right? So by the time you get to a certain age, I'm conditioned to certain things already, right? And we have a safe route, go to work, get a good job, come home, do that thing. But I feel like outside of that is podcasting. Outside of that is creating a nonprofit. Outside of that is all these things that scare us and scare other people. Because the safe thing to do is not try to start a business and lose a bunch of money. Who wants to do that? But if you never did that, you would never have gained the knowledge that you have, the experience. You can look back and say, hey, I tried that. It didn't come out the way I wanted it to, but I feel good for trying.
I love that. And another major thing I try to implement in my own kids is daily affirmations. You know, that's something that we do every single day.
Wow.
But on top of that, I parent differently. I do understand the importance of rules, you know, of foundations, etc. However, what I really impart is a value system. Because no matter what career you do, no matter what education you try to seek out or you don't seek out, what are your values that you absolutely will not want to shake and whenever the older you get? Because I feel like when you enter adulthood, you kind of go through this moment where values that were important to you, sometimes they do change.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're like, well, I will sacrifice my values in order to achieve that money, in order to achieve that job, in order to achieve that certain partner.
Right.
And I have found through failure that when you let go of the value system or the values you have, because value system isn't taught a lot these days, when you let go of values that you have or you don't know what your values have, your life reflects it. So you don't know what your value system is.
Right.
Guess what? Your life don't know where it's going to go.
Right. One of those pillars is missing. So you're kind of just aimlessly wandering. You're trying to fit things in, but the foundation of it. And, you know, I'm glad that you brought that up because I had a conversation with a good friend of mine and they were like, hey, I feel like one of my pillars in my life is kind of off. And that's creating the other pillars to take on more of a load. So when they put it to me like that, I was like, you know, we definitely need a few eggs in each basket, you know? And my mom did a great job with every day asking us, how was your day? How do you feel? What's bothering you? A lot of people don't get that. A lot of kids do not get a platform to tell the parent, this is how I feel, because it might involve them. You know, so
emotional intelligence.
You know, it might involve them. So we were able, and I'm thankful for that. But what you're doing with your girls, what values, and I guess you're asking them, you're letting them tell you what's important to them. And hey, let's stick to it, you know? So that kind of brought me to something that we had talked about. You have been in all these positions, Fortune 500 companies. You've worn all the hats, all the titles. You've been everywhere. What was still not fulfilling about that? You felt like something was missing.
Yeah. So nonprofit has been a part of me for a long time. I mean, even the organization I started in Belize was to do good. So I'd take my own clothes and my little brother's clothes and I'd give it to other kids that didn't have a lot, right? So, and you're right, I've worn several different hats. You know, I've worn the CEO title, I've worn the fundraising and marketing title, I've sat on boards. And something that I have seen is that oftentimes when you're in a position, especially in a nonprofit, or honestly, I think it can apply to any job, when you're in a position that you have to please a person either above or below in order to make you either stay or go up, that ain't where I want to be.
Right. That's rough.
So I'm huge about, asset development, money, blah, blah, blah. But then I realized, I was like, those are all great things. But I have a passion after seeing so many people have gone through the court system, assisting different individuals and women whenever I partner with different nonprofits, that there's a voice that is lacking. And I have friends that are lawyers. I adore them. They knew at a young age that they wanted to be lawyers.
Yeah.
And they uprooted and they went to a big old city and they're still there working for large Fortune 500 companies. But what about our people? What about our backyard? What about our community? And I told you this over the phone, but my grandfather imparted in me very young, probably the biggest wisdom I've ever heard is never pity a person, always show empathy. And that's putting myself in someone else's shoes.
Right.
And as I always was constantly sitting in these board meetings and tasks and, different people have asked me about, are you running for politics or are you going to, and as much as I, have mad respect for different positions.
Right.
I don't see them being a change maker. I see them being a mouthpiece.
Gotcha.
I want to be where things are going to be shaken up.
Right.
Where I can argue, use big words, be as introverted as I want and I'm accepted. And to me, whenever I think of that, I think of the courtroom where I will be heard. Yeah. I can share facts about the situation. I can be extroverted. I can be pretty. I can be introverted. And not that is not a judgment zone because it's just built and dealt upon where the very foundation of this country has come from. Right. And there needs to be a change. There needs to be a change amongst our, for our minority community, for our Black and brown. There needs to be voices for our women in our community.
Absolutely. And
when I sit in the courtroom with these different women who have gone through different situations and I'm looking at the same white judge, that I've seen in every situation, I'm like, man, I even raised my hand once. I was like, can I say something? I was like, I don't think that was proper, but I have a voice that needs to be heard. And so many times I'm surrounded in different situations, whether it's corporate or nonprofit, where I've been told I need to shut up, sit down, look pretty, raise your hand if you want to participate.
We need to tone that down a little bit. Yeah, right. They wanted the professional tone.
Yes.
They got Jojo. They didn't want Jonathan though, right?
Oh, you are 100% right. Yeah. Oh, that's why I get asked to, can you please advocate for this? And can you please, local celebrity, and do this? But they don't want me to actually be like, wow, there's an issue in your system.
Right.
Or you're missing people of minority, yet the people you serve are minorities.
Right.
So why is your own office not reflecting that? They don't want me to say those things.
No.
They just want me to look good and go out there and bring up numbers. Right. And so I'm tired of being the tool. And I'm very excited about being a voice in the court system where I can actually make some real change and not be told that I need to shut up and sit down.
Right. You tell people, no, you be quiet.
You be,
Yeah. You tone it down.
You see the lawyer.
Right.
Okay.
Just know when you get in these positions, I'm going to do a whole bunch of ignorant stuff. And when they come and ask me, why are you doing it? I'm going to just pull the card. You want to talk to her about this? Because we good. Like,
Thank you.
Which brings us in. Huge congratulations to you. We're talking about law. You were just recently accepted into pre-law.
Yes.
So that's amazing.
Yes, I'm excited.
That's amazing. So is that timeline wise, what's that look like for you?
It's January.
January.
So I start in January.
All right.
Already spoke to my law advisor. Like we already got all my classes fixed up. I mean, really excited jumping on this, you know? So by the time I shared it and announced it, and she's very excited about my background. So she is probably one of the best law advisors I've ever heard of, but she works with what your passions already are.
Okay.
And then directs what your path as a lawyer would be. And so Hollins University specifically actually has a really cool program with some of the top 6 law schools in all of the U.S. That they partner with. And so she's piloting me in order to make sure that I'm accepted in this program where law school would be paid for. And, I'll get LSATs for free and get paid to intern and all this just because she has seen my interest and my gifting already.
That's amazing. That's a blessing. Did you know that it was going to kind of like map out like that? Or were you kind of looking at like the big mountain, like, oh, law school, it's expensive. I got to do this. I got to do that. Or did you go into it knowing that you would have like potential for like extra resources and like?
I went.
Right.
I had the idea and I was like, it fit. Right. I mean, it's funny because I'm not going for the money aspects of it, right, but I'm tired of just being quiet.
Yeah.
And I've really lived a large part of my life based upon what other people expected of me, what other people thought I should do, what they thought my gifting was. And it was never something brilliant. It was always like, oh my gosh, you should be in all these pretty positions. So I'm like, man, this is my Legally Blonde year, okay? Because I'll be walking in.
Right, yeah.
And finally be able to show that part of me I've had to stump down, circling right back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I've had to shut up in order to be accepted in society.
Right. I talked to Weston briefly, and I was going to run a little bit of a thing, but we decided not to, of course. But with everything that's going on in the world right now, it seems that we advocate for freedom of speech. We advocate for mental health. We advocate for all of these things. And it seems like as soon as somebody breaks the mold, we step outside of that. Let's get down to the facts. Let's do some digging. There's reprisal. There's reprimand. There's all these things that come to that. But you're going to be in a position to where you can expose some of those things, but you have the backing to do that. They're not going to tell you, hey, you need to go and sit through these sentencing sessions and apologize to these people and do these things. And somebody standing across from you is going to get, represented and seen and heard by somebody that they can associate with,
Agree.
Somebody that understands their story, somebody that understands where they come from, somebody that is not looking to just create a number. Okay, let me hit my numbers. No, this is somebody's life. And if we were all judged and based upon mistakes that we made, whether known or unknown, none of us would be here right now.
Oh, I 100% agree.
So I think that that's amazing that you're going to be in that position, because I do feel like we need that. We need the judicial system. It's in everything that was written in way back in the day. It wasn't even necessarily written in a time that it was supposed to be anything positive for minorities. So, and I don't want to open up a huge can of worms on that, but, just like you said, shaking it up and being able to get in a position where you could make change and being the face, not just the face for the boardroom or the face for this, marketing thing, but a face for change, So I think that's really cool.
And honestly, what kind of drew me in that I've seen over and over is that, a lot of people in this country, speak English, right? But there's a book that I read. Everyone communicates, few connect. And that's what I saw as a lack in the courtroom, is that they may be speaking what this person is saying. The judge is speaking what they're saying. And yet they're not connecting on the same wavelength, right, because of different cultures, different word usage, different understanding and background and exposures. And so that's where I see me as this bridge to be able to hear my future clients and be able to share from their heart what they're trying to express, but they have not been given an opportunity to or don't know how.
Right.
So
that's really big. When we spoke, we talked about going for it after 30, right? And what that looks like for people. And I think it's important to do that because everybody's story is a little bit different. Even after all of your accomplishments and everything that you felt like you've done, you kind of feel like you're now getting into the mold of something that's really substantial, something that's speaking to you. And I think that a lot of people need to know that Age is not a limit. Excuse me. And don't allow people to put you in a box and say, hey, you're 37, 38. Should you be starting a podcast now? I think you should be 48 and start a podcast. 52. You know, I don't think we should put restrictions on ourselves. And I think if our friends and our family want to start something new, we should support them. You know, because I think we all have this misconception about timelines and the way our life should be, where we're at right now, right? Oh, I'm married, I have children, this and that. Doesn't mean you still can't reach your goals. Hey, I'm single, I don't have any kids. Will I have a family one day? You don't know what's going to happen next week. You know? Mm-hmm. You can meet somebody in Kroger. You can meet somebody, you know, you never know what's going to happen. So I tell people, the Steak and Sauce family, everybody that's going to watch this, if you have something that's in your heart, please don't let anybody dim your light. Please don't let somebody make you feel like you shouldn't go for it, or it's going to be too hard, or you're too old to act a certain type of way. No, be you, because you never know what that's going to get you, you know? So going forward after 30, what does that mean to you?
I think the biggest beautiful thing that going forward after 30 is that you realize the most valuable thing in life past money is time. Time. And I looked back past my 5 years, which I could have been a lawyer by now. Right. I was interested 5 years ago. And I have this story of this friend, a very successful woman, growing her business. She has large conferences all over the U.S. And she says, I see this friend, and every few years that I see her, she's like, I've always wanted to be an elementary school teacher. And so she just waits for the next few years where she could have gone back to school to become a teacher. But instead, it's always that I've always wanted to be. And so, you know, on my book, on my journal, it says, you know, don't dream it, do it. Right. And so when you have a thought, and I'm a firm believer in the power of thoughts, when you have a thought, you run with it. And going forward after 30 means that I'm not as shy, and I'm quicker to do mistakes. Because I realize the faster I fail, the closer I am to success. Lord. Shoot. You know.
Say that. Hold up. Steak and Sauce family, say that again. Please, run that back. The faster I fail, the closer I am to success. I think that people associate failure with other people's opinion. Who cares how many times that you fail? If people watch you fail, that means they're still stagnant. They're not failing, which means they're not trying. So the fact that you said that, like, I'm going to start saying on every episode, Weston, like, the faster we fail, and we failed here. There's things we do differently because we failed. Like, that didn't work. So I thank you. I love that. So how are you applying that to your personal life right now?
Oh, gosh. To my personal life, there's a guy that I liked 6 years ago. And I literally reached out to him. I was like, hey, I'll buy you drinks. Right. Shoot, I'm not taking any time. I'm like, you know, my life is right here.
Hold up. Shooting the shot. She said, look, don't even worry about it. I'll buy the drinks. Just show up.
I was like, I don't know if you dating someone, but.
Right. You know what I'm saying? They go down in the DM. I'm trying to tell y'all. But no, that's awesome, because it seems like you're taking on the idea of, you know, I'm going to go for it. What's the worst that can happen? Yep. Yes or no, either way, go back to the drawing board. Yep. So I think that's pretty awesome, for real. Weston, how are we doing on time?
About an hour 18.
About an hour 18? Okay, yep. Got you. So, Jojo, thank you so much. Mm-hmm. I think that we definitely have to have you come back on for part 2. There's so many more questions that we have, diving into certain things. I did not know how separated Roanoke was, and how we have these pockets of wealth, and how it's not really distributed, and how the resources and things. I'd love to dive more into that, because I don't think a lot of people know, you know, how that's separated and stuff. This has been Steak and Sauce Podcast, episode 14. It's the baddest podcast in the land. We had an amazing guest today, Jojo. We thank her for being here. As always, the man behind the plan, the genius of it all, Weston. You can follow him at carmack.media on IG. Continue to support us. Hit that subscribe and notification button. If you'd like to come on the show, please DM us, send us a message, tell us what you're doing, what you want to come on the show and talk about. We're here for it. We thank God for continuing to bless us to be creative and have a platform to express ourselves. And until the next time, y'all be blessed.